Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start today's video with a story about an operator who was told to properly clock out for lunch, even though his old boss had already worked out a smarter system. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. You have to clock out for lunch. So the place I work at had mandatory lunch hours. We're supposed to take between certain hours based on what hours we're working. I'm an operator, so it's not like I can just walk away from the job if something's going on. My duty is to keep the plant running and make sure nothing bad is happening to the equipment. So after constantly having to call the old manager about missing my clock-ins or clock-outs because I got busy with something, he told me about this survey I could fill out whenever this happened that basically said I took my lunch, I just didn't clock out for it, and payroll would adjust it accordingly. So on that note, if you're on an official clocked-out lunch as an operator and an alarm goes off or you're interrupted for any reason, you have to clock back in and address the issue, and then either clock out again and retake your entire lunch, or just call a manager / fill out the survey and you're basically paid for your lunch. So I filled out the survey every single morning, choosing to just skip the whole ordeal of trying to remember my lunches. That's literally what the survey's for. New manager comes in. A month in, he pulls me aside and says, I haven't been clocking out for lunches. I inform him of the survey. He tells me that's only for the occasional missed lunch. I disagree with him. The writing clearly states I voluntarily chose to skip my meal. He basically orders me to start clocking out for lunch. So for the next 2 weeks, since I have a 2-hour window to take a half-hour lunch, I waited until about the last half hour and then specifically wait until I see a certain piece of equipment drawing close to a nuisance alarm level and then clock out for lunch. Somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes later, the alarm goes off. Oops, guess I have to clock back in and go silence that alarm. Oh no, not enough time left to restart my lunch. I did that for 2 weeks straight, forcing the company to pay me for my half-hour interrupted lunches. New manager tried to ignore it until his boss, who was like old manager but got promoted a few years back, comes down to ask me why I stopped filling out the survey. I inform him of new manager's instructions, to which he rolls his eyes and tells me to go back to using the survey. Never heard another word about it. And the cherry on top? We just got all new time clocks a few weeks ago. The survey lingo pops up when we clock out now instead of just a name and a time, so I still don't have to clock out for lunch. Now I just click OK, agreeing that I took my lunch at some point, and I'm good to go. Fist pump. Edit. All right, let me add some stuff because y'all seem to think I'm giving the company free money. First of all, I'll be honest, a lot of my job is sitting around doing nothing. The plant runs itself for the most part. I'm paid to react to upsets, not sit here and do a task nonstop for 8 hours. So, in my opinion, a lot of my time is a break. Second of all, this is a union job. Third of all, I am taking my lunch. I'm just choosing not to clock out for it. My hours remain the same whether I clock out for it or not. The survey just ensures that I don't get paid extra for a missed lunch. If I do legitimately miss my lunch because of an upset, the survey also has the option to say I missed my lunch and I'll get paid an extra half hour for the day. The new time clocks have the survey embedded in them when we clock out, defaulted to I took my lunch. If I miss my lunch that day, I can change the clock out checkboxes to I missed my lunch and I'll automatically get paid for them. So basically, no, I'm not working for free. I still take my lunch and probably take a bit longer than half an hour to cook everything and eat it, but I'm still actively monitoring the system. Operators don't operate on tidy meal schedules. They operate on whatever mood the machinery is in. The survey accounted for that perfectly. But new manager thought he'd discovered a loophole and decided to fix it. Instead, he created a scenario where the company paid more, productivity dropped, and the equipment alarms became living proof of why the policy existed. And our second story. I fought a war of curb paint with my HOA. I won the final battle with a single phone call to my bank. Fall 2005. SO and I buy our first house together. We're happy. Baby's on the way. House is cute and in a new subdivision. HOA just formed. We're at the end of a blunt cul-de-sac. Quiet, no traffic. Neighbors nice. 3-ish years later, the U.S. economy crapped the bed and wiped the drapes. Over half of the homes in our subdivision have been foreclosed on or are in the process. Me and mine aren't paying on our mortgage. We've moved out, and a family friend and his family have moved in. They lost their house. He pays me a discounted rent. I'm not paying the mortgage, but maintaining the house with his rent. The HOA's having troubles maintaining the common areas and keeping things clean because of lack of funds. Junky cars and dead, dying landscape are everywhere. One home is burned to its foundation. A few months after my friend moves in, red fire lane paint is applied to the curbs of all the cul-de-sacs in the subdivision. I'm furious because it prevents street parking in front of the house. Anytime I need to stop by to fix something or my tenant has a guest, we must park in front of a neighbor's house or in the common collector streets and walk in. I called the local fire department to ask why they need so many fire lanes, seeing how there were no hydrants nearby. They told me they hadn't requested additional fire lanes, nor had they asked for curbs to be painted. They said anyone can just paint a curb red. It's the signage or a hydrant's presence that makes it a legal fire lane. The paint's just there to help you interpret the signage. I check, and sure enough, no signs. Come to find out, it's a ploy by the HOA to drum up more funds. If they paint curbs red and call it a safety zone, their bylaws allow them to fine a homeowner for violating the safety zone. Funny also that the HOA president lives at the end of one of the cul-de-sacs, and now the neighbors can no longer park in front of her house without getting safety zone fines. One evening, just past twilight, wearing his high-vis vest, safety glasses, and work boots, I paint over the red curb with boring gray paint, specifically designed for concrete with great coverage. I do the entire cul-de-sac. 3 weeks later, it's red again. 2 days later, gray. 5 weeks, red. Then gray with silicone top sealer. Then red that flakes off almost immediately. Then red again, flakes. Then a sign that reads, safety zone, no parking. For lack of payment, the home is now under notification of foreclosure, and I'm working with an agency to help navigate and file all the paperwork needed so we can short sell. Short selling in this context means that although we promised to pay the bank $350,000 plus interest for the house, they'd forgive any amount we owe as long as we turn the house over in good condition. E.g., not flush concrete down the toilets or poke pinholes in the water pipes, which screws us, but it's better than owing $350,000 on a house worth only $165,000 that will be legally taken from us in short order. F you, Reagan. I'm still waiting for that trickle. During a short sale, you're required to notify any potential parties that could have liens on the house. This includes the HOA. I'm up to date on my dues and have no outstanding violations, so I think I'm in the clear. But no, the HOA suddenly comes up with a whole list of violations that haven't been addressed or remedied for 5 months, plus additional fines for the delay. The HOA said they notified me in November, but can't seem to produce copies of these multiple notices of violation. They only have the current one in March listing all the outstanding violations. Examples: black stains on driveway, uncoiled garden hose, unapproved tree, missing bush, missing foliage, dead tree. I informed them that the stains were tire marks from driving into the garage. The unapproved tree they did, in fact, approve. The missing bushes, they approved the removal. Here's a copy of the plan and your approvals with your name on it. It's not my fault you don't know what you approved. The dead tree, many trees, tend to lose leaves in the fall. Like around November, they might look dead if you're just making up violations in February, but are dormant and waiting for spring. Even if it was dead, you can't replace a tree in November, December, January, or February. No nurseries sell saplings that late in the season, unless you want a Yuletide tree. How can someone be reasonably expected to replace a dead tree in the off-season? The HOA delays responding, and the short sale's on a timer. If I don't have all legal items, payments for liens, and documents into the escrow officer by date, my short sale will fall through, and I'll owe $350,000 plus interest on a $165,000 house that's soon to be foreclosed on. The HOA fines and fees total $1,955, $45 short of where felony fraud starts. I'm furious. This HOA is going to F me one last time, and I'll pay for the experience. So I talked to the escrow officer and see what she needs. Only the money for the HOA lien, and you'll close escrow tomorrow. She's seen reams of these come through with similar amounts of fines requested by HOAs that hold up short sales. None exceed $2,000. I ask her what form of payment will satisfy her as an escrow officer: money order, cash, or check. A check would be easiest for you, don't you think? If I write a check to HOA for $1,955, then hand it to you, that'll satisfy escrow? Yep. You'll mail the check to HOA after the documents record. Yes. You'll have a check in 25 minutes. The next day, on the phone with the escrow officer, sitting in my car in a parking lot, 9:01 a.m., did the documents record? Did the short sale go through? Yes, I'll mail out finalized documents and any other items before close of business today. Thank you. Hang up. I walk into the local branch of my bank and inform the teller I need to place a stop payment on a check. And HOA never tried to collect or contact us again. The fact that the amount was $45 under the felony threshold proves they knew exactly what they were doing was wrong. Your response, making that carefully calculated sum vanish into thin air, was the ultimate FU. They tried to exploit the system one last time, and you used its very mechanisms to leave them with nothing but a voided check and the silent knowledge that they'd been outplayed. And our last story. They called me selfish for fencing my own beach. I've spent more than 30 years working, saving, investing, and grinding my way toward one goal, owning a quiet stretch of oceanfront property. Not a vacation condo, not a timeshare, but a real place on the sand. A home where I could drink my morning coffee while listening to waves instead of traffic. A place that actually felt like peace. And I did it. I bought a house on a private road with a deed that included the beach directly south of my home, the part everyone assumes is public, but absolutely is not. The road even has a sign the size of a billboard at the entrance. No beach access. You can't miss it unless you're aggressively committed to pretending you didn't see it. Turns out half the town is aggressively committed. Within weeks of moving in, I discovered that people have been treating this private beach like a public park for decades. Families hauled down coolers and umbrellas, teenagers ran their dogs loose, random adults walked straight past my windows like they were strolling through a resort. People stood in my dunes drinking beer and leaving the cans. One woman even dragged a full picnic table down the sand, sat there with her friends, and waved at me like I was the intruder. I talked to a few longtime residents and got the full story. The previous owners had tried to stop it 20 years ago. They put up signs, people tore them down. They tried temporary fences. Locals cut them apart. They tried politely asking people to leave. They got screamed at for blocking public access. Eventually, those owners gave up, mostly because they lived out of state and only visited a few times a year. The beach bullies learned that if they threw a big enough tantrum, no one would challenge them. Well, I live here, and I'm not afraid of tantrums. At first, though, I wanted to handle things as calmly as possible. I greeted people and told them the beach was private. Most gave a fake apology and left, only to return the next day. A few argued. One guy laughed at me and said, "You don't own the ocean, bro." Another told me the sign didn't apply because this road is basically public. None of this was surprising. What did surprise me was Karen. She showed up on a bright Saturday afternoon with 2 kids, a dog, and enough beach gear to supply a small military operation. She marched straight down the private road, ignored the sign, ignored me standing on the deck, and planted her folding chair literally 5 feet from my property line marker. I walked down and told her politely, "Ma'am, this beach is private property. You'll need to leave." Karen adjusted her sunglasses. "Oh, please," she said. "Beaches are for everyone. You can't gatekeep nature." "It isn't gatekeeping. This land is legally deeded, and this road is private too." She scoffed. "If you keep bothering us, I'll call the police. You're harassing a mother with kids." "You're trespassing," I said. "And you're rude," she snapped. "I'll call the cops right now." That was the moment something in me clicked. I hadn't spent 3 decades working overtime and pouring every spare cent into land just so Karen from the cul-de-sac could plant her flamingo-shaped cup holder in my sand and threaten me with the police. So I walked back inside, sat down with a cup of coffee, and started making phone calls. Within 48 hours, I had contractors scheduled. By the end of the week, cement footers were poured. A few days later, steel posts went up. And then the fencing started, a clean, beautiful, fully legal boundary that blocked every single unauthorized path to the beach. The day the fence was completed, Karen stormed up the road in full meltdown mode. "You can't do this. You're selfish. You're blocking the community's access." "Correct," I said, "because the community never had access." "This is going to make people hate you." "Karen," I replied, "you were already keying my property in your mind. I don't care." She screeched something about lawyers, about the town, about prescriptive rights, none of which applied. My lawyer already confirmed she didn't have a legal leg to stand on, unless she wanted to argue that trespassing for fun counted as a tradition worth preserving. The fence is up now, the beach is quiet, and every morning when I walk down to the water and see the stretch of sand without dog poop, beer cans, or inflatable flamingos, I feel like I'm finally getting what I paid for. This is what happens when entitlement meets a property owner who actually reads their deed. The private road sign wasn't small, the rules weren't ambiguous, but people spent years convincing themselves that if they ignored the boundary hard enough, it would magically become public. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.